On the 29th of July 2020, the Government of India unfurled the revolutionary NEP that aims to recondition the Indian higher education system to become more progressive, inclusive, and equitable. NEP 2020 favors giving more autonomy to business schools, but also throws a lot of challenges, such as emphasis on research quality and community outreach. To talk and discuss on these issues, we have a galaxy of eminent speakers for this session. I take this opportunity to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Barak Devan. He is the chairman and CEO of Paradigm Consultants Gurugram, a niche consulting firm in higher education. He is widely recognized as a trendsetter in higher education, having founded a variety of institutions, including the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies in Dehradun, and the recipient of many national and international awards for his achievements. We extend a warm welcome to you, sir, and request you to please take your seat on the stage. Our next member of the panel is Dr. N.R. Parasuraman, Director, SDM Institute for Management Development, Mysore. He has got 39 years of experience in diverse areas of finance, published over 40 papers and concept articles in various journals, authored many books, and has been recently appointed as a member of the EPAS Accreditation Board by the EFMD Brussels. He is the only Indian member to be a panel of this elite board. We welcome you, sir, and request you to please join the panel. Our next member is Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain, Director, Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Hyderabad. He is a startup evangelist and a distinguished academician with over 150 international and national publications to his credit. Dr. Jain serves on several expert committees for the Government of India and has been conferred with several awards, including the Dr. Suresh Ghai Memorial Award for Outstanding Business School Director by the Higher Education Forum, Academician Excellence Award 2021, Distinguished Services 2019, and many others. We are glad to have you here and extend a very warm welcome to you, sir. I'm honored to introduce the moderator of this session to you, Shreevats Jaipuria, Vice Chairman, Jaipuria Group of Institutions. As we all know, under the able leadership of Mr. Jaipuria, the St. M.R. Jaipuria schools have grown multifold today with 39 schools with 30,000 students. Jaipuria Institute has also emerged as one of the top business school chains in India with multiple campuses and ranking amongst the top 75 business schools according to the NIRF rankings. He is currently the Chairman, Education Committee, PhD Chamber of Commerce, and has received many recognitions, including being featured in the list of 50 leaders who can revive education by Education World and 50 leading icons in education by Education Today World. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shri Jaipuria as the moderator for this session. Now I hand over the session proceedings to you, sir.
Just a minute, can I request all of you to give a big applause to this panel? This is the last panel. Good afternoon, friends. It's really an honor to be hosting this last fourth preliminary for this very important conference on the topic of NEP 2020 implementation challenges and opportunities for Indian B schools. As already introduced by the host, we have an extremely well qualified and experienced group of panelists, Dr. Parag Devan, Dr. Parasuraman, and Dr. Ravi Jain, to deliberate this issue. Friends, the National Education Policy 2020, as approved by the Cabinet in July 2020, has replaced the previous National Education Policy of 1986. It took almost 34 years to replace that policy. The new policy realizes that education must play an absolutely essential role in utilizing the demographic dividend that we have in India today. It realizes that the demographic dividend has to be utilized today and not at a later time. And changes in education policy are extremely important to take place quickly. This is the first policy that explicitly takes an expansionary approach and by targeting a higher gross enrollment ratio almost at all levels of education, right from preschool to higher education. Though we have already achieved universal enrollment at a primary level, the gross enrollment ratio of India drops to 79% as we go to grade 9 and 10, and 56% as we go to grade 11 and 12. The national education policy targets that the gross enrollment ratio at grade 11 and 12 must increase from 56% to 100% in the next 10 years or so, which means that there should be a growth of almost 50 to 60% in terms of the people completing school and becoming potential students in the higher education system. It also envisions that the gross enrollment ratio at the higher education, which means mostly degree programs, should increase from 26% to 50% by 2035, which means for people in the MBA space or the PGDM space, the master space, the audience, the target audience increases to double in the next 10 years or so. So unlike my good friend 𝗕-𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, I'm extremely positive about the future of the Indian B school aspirant, and I'm extremely confident that that market will continue to grow. Yes, there are some factors whereby the market is likely to get less fragmented, and this business schools that are doing well are likely to take a higher percentage of those students. I think there is also a trend that we are seeing whereby CAT perhaps is probably not the only indicator of MBA aspiration, because a lot of top business schools, including in the university system and outside, are taking students from other than CAT. So if the vision of the NEP is realized, which I'm sure that it will be a few years here and there, the target market for business school education in India is likely to at least double in the next 10 years or so. The NEP talks about achieving this higher gross enrollment ratio through a mix of private and public investment in education. So most importantly, I think the biggest change in education policy, and I think I have personally seen this in the attitude of regulators when you talk to them today, is that the government sees private education players not as a nuisance but as a partner in meeting a national goal and not as a competition against other government institutions. I think this is a huge change in attitude that this policy is looking at. I think from the perspective specifically of management education, the top of which is dominated, at least in the private sphere, by PGDM institutions. We have 400 or so PGDM institutions that amongst the private players in management education make up most of the top 200 business schools that are out there. The NEP has even more far-reaching changes. Presently, in the Indian education system, only universities are able to confer degrees, and PGDM is sort of an island that has been created to keep management education out of the university system, not allowing them to give degrees, but giving diplomas that are almost considered equivalent to degrees. The NEP envisions that education should be multidisciplinary in nature and should not be only any institution should not be restricted to only one field. This necessitates that PGDM institutions cannot only offer PGDM, and they will eventually have to get into other fields. Once this necessity is created that PGDM institutions have to order to be multidisciplinary in nature, the question arises, how do they offer such programs without the ability to give degrees? The NEP answers this question by creating a new model called autonomous college. It says that we must do away with the old British system of affiliated colleges. India presently has 40,000 or so affiliated colleges, which, other than a few exceptions, are not providing the sort of quality that the country deserves, and says that no longer do colleges have to affiliate themselves to universities in order to provide degrees, but in the future we will see autonomous colleges, which means colleges that are degree granting in nature and not only giving PGDM diplomas or university degrees. I think once this system starts to get implemented in the next few years, PGDM colleges will be at the forefront of this, because we already have a higher degree of autonomy than the affiliated college system. And once the intention of the government is to unravel the affiliated college system and make them autonomous, I think PGDM colleges are already in the front of the line to become autonomous degree granting colleges first and become multidisciplinary in nature. So this is my interpretation of what is going to happen in the NEP from my reading of it, as well as conversations with many regulators across the regulatory spectrum. Number one, a huge change in attitude, an expansionary mode of looking at private education rather than restrictive. The NEP also goes and lays out saying that all higher educational institutions should have minimum 3,000 students. As a person working in private education in India over the last 15 years or so, I'm used to reading government documents saying this is the maximum number of students you can have, and this is the first real policy document that talks about minimum number of students. So I think it's really a wonderful time to be in education. I think the market is going to expand rapidly as we meet some of those targets of gross enrollment ratio at a school level, at a senior secondary level, and then at a higher education graduate level as well. So I'm extremely excited to be at this place at this time, along with all of you, and I think we have the real opportunity to make a difference in catering to the needs of education that will be created in the next few years through the implementation of this policy. So going forward, I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Barak Devan, to share his experience for about 6 to 7 minutes, and then we'll do one round of introductory remarks by each of the speakers, and then hopefully have time for questions either moderated by me or from the audience. Thank you very much.
Well, while the presentation comes on the screen, let me thank EPSI for providing this opportunity. It's always a great pleasure to be on EPSI forum and participating in after 2 years. So it's a wonderful time to be here. Also, I must confess that this presentation was made when I was stuck in cyclone in Visakhapatnam when winds were blowing. And it was only because of help of Dr. 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 I was able to be extricated from there and brought back to Delhi in time, because Dr. 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 wanted that the speaker must be there. So with that, let me start. We all have been having last 2 years, multiple webinars. Everybody participated in zillions of webinars about what is NEP, how to demystify NEP. So it's a quick recap. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but there are certain points which will be useful for our discussion as we move along. So I'm going to pick on some of these points, and we will talk about in perspective of business schools and business education. First of all, there is this structure of academic programs that allow multiple entry, multiple exits. And Dr. Benvez was alluding to integrated programs. Now this is also time for disintegrated programs. You can have diplomas, certificates, degrees, mini degrees, associate degrees, 5-year program, 4-year program, 3-year program. It reminds me of the time almost 20 years ago while I was director at AIMA. We used to offer this multiple entry, multiple exit system in PGDM program. Certificate after first semester, diploma after second semester, post-diploma after third semester, and finally PGDM. But this has come back. But it is very important, while I put this point, opportunities are there to recraft the program portfolio. How do we recraft the program portfolio? What would 4-year undergraduate degrees look like? What would 1-year programs look like? Whether they'll be hybrid, partially online, offline, all those kind of things. And then it is complicated by system of choice-based credit system, outcome-based education. All that has to be mixed, so it becomes a really interesting cocktail which we need to demystify. So, as NEP said, multidisciplinary approach. We always been talking about how should we, infuse MBA programs or undergraduate BBA programs with liberal education to create certain kinds of learning, thinking, creative skills, creative thinking, empathy, and all those kind of things. So it's again a great opportunity how to put all this together and create. And the 4-year degree format does give you a time or a space to create foundational courses in liberal arts and liberal studies, so it works. But challenges is that most of the B schools do not have faculty in liberal studies, or faculty numbers are anyway restricted. So these are some of the challenges to create multidisciplinary approach to business education in line with NEP. Also, choice-based credit system brings a great advantage, and it will create the kind of new portfolios that we were talking about. Somebody talked about Industry 4.0, somebody talked about digital economy, emerging technologies, creative, but all this needs a huge dependence on the CBCS implementation itself needs a huge dependence on IT systems. How robust your IT systems are there, and many of the business schools I have known or have met do not have sufficient IT systems to do a course-wise registration where students menu pops up and student picks and chooses and crafts its own bespoke degrees. When I built a university in Dehradun, we were at that time and still are the highly automated. Everything there still is automated. In 2007, we implemented SAP implementation, which was very unheard of in business in academic institutions, which still runs, which provides entire CBCS capabilities even now. So one of the biggest impact is that we must invest into technology, appropriate technology to make sure that choice-based credit system with outcome-based education, crafting of, there is a time of what is called bespoke degrees, that each student can craft its own degree by taking the various kinds of courses from various buckets as the CBCS envisages. Academic bank of credit, another new animal has come, and how does it will work from lower ranked institutions to higher ranked institutions, same ranked institution, but it does give a huge opportunity in terms of standalone courses which can be put together in certificates, which can later on student can bank that and come back for completing the MBA program or diploma program. So it has a great potential in terms of, if properly implemented, revenue by running multiple kinds of certificates, diplomas, apart from the standard PGDM or MBA programs. But on the challenge side, it will require a very, very sophisticated, otherwise it can lead to unimaginable academic and administrative issues. So again, issue of technology, how strong your IT systems are there in your institution, that requires a great thinking. Digital online, we had a very good discussion in the last panel. To me, it's a great opportunity, and branded institutions should enlarge their portfolio, offer online degrees if they are into top ranking of NIRF or NAC, which has been a mandate given for running. Or another very important things which I am running with some of my client institutions, that they have only physical capacity of 1,000 students. How can they run 1,500 students from the same physical capacity by what I call HBU model, hybrid blended online? So how you can, and government also permits up to 40% of the credits to be offered through online credits. So again, very interesting mechanisms that online is here to stay. You can have degrees, you can synthesize with your physical programs, you can enlarge your capacity augmentation. Then, of course, as we learned during the pandemic, bandwidths, ownership of digital devices is a challenge in some of the areas in India still, or some of the segments of students who do not own a digital device or for whom a digital divide still exists. So these are some of the challenges that we need to look into. The internationalization, again, there was a point somebody made, why our students go out, why can't the students come in? So that remains that you have to create premium programs, maybe initially with a collaboration with reputed American or British schools. And now we have full freedom to offer twinning, joint, dual degree. So why can't we make, at least our top business school can make it to offer a compelling program where students come from outside rather than our students going abroad. Of course, clarity on mechanism of accepting credits from Western universities or American universities, and how exactly these top 100 institutions will come, play as some things that needs to be looked into. And finally, we come to the existential question, whether standalone B schools have a future or not. As the moderator of the session was also explaining, that there are now, either you can be multidisciplinary research focused, multidisciplinary teaching focused, or an autonomous college with degree granting provision. So all three opportunities are available. Some of the B schools who have sufficient size of acreage of land can become smaller universities, they can look into research intensity with, or they can become a autonomous college with a teaching intensity, and that's where I would request that EPSI should, lobby for creating a mechanism or a framework, how standalone PGDM, because anyway, after the passage of IM Act, the standalone PGDM is a question mark. I was reading somewhere on LinkedIn, somebody has put a RTI, that PGDM should not be existing after some year or something like that. But all those questions are there. So opportunities are there. Otherwise, standalone B schools will anyway, 𝗕𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗍𝗃 was saying that 400 have already gone out of the 800. So maybe some more will go unless we make all these changes. So with that, I think it is enough for the introductory remarks. I will rest my case. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Diwan. Now I invite Dr. Parasuraman, Director, SDM Institute of Management Development, Mysore, to give his introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, Shreevats. And after wonderful discussions that we have had right through the day, I'm just going to concentrate on certain specific thoughts on NEP and how that will affect individual institutes, or how we should react to the specific postulates. Is what I'm just to some stray thoughts about 5 specific thoughts in particular. All of us are agreed, and I suppose the entire nation is agreed, that NEP is a wonderful document. Its principles are very lofty and something that is really to be desired. However, when it comes to implementation at the ground level, there are some issues. So things like involving or sensitizing the students to various softer skills, including fine arts, other aspects of foreign languages, etc. Many micro-level institutions will not have the wherewithal to do this. So first of all, the faculty competence is there. Again, the question of how the courses have to be structured, and then how that can be implemented and how it can be evaluated. All these are really technical issues. However, something that has been allowed now is that we can have a blend, in the sense that hybrid courses, partly because of COVID, partly also because of AICTE's guidelines. Some of these can be actually done online and then evaluated, maybe. Now the question also arises, how much is evaluation required? There is a school of thought which believes that students should be left free, and actually there should be, the age-old system of evaluation is not correct. Unfortunately, many people also do not agree on that. Many people feel that evaluation is a very, very important component and actually makes enough pressure on the students to work hard and rise to a particular level. Otherwise, sometimes, the allegations sometimes that industry has that many of them are unemployable will again re-emerge if you do not make evaluation a very important component. The second aspect I would like to just throw thoughts on, with all these experts here sitting, you could also probably add on later, is about the industry academia involvement. Now, normally what happens is many B schools or many management institutes as well as universities have this event called Industry Academia Interaction, in which broad postulates of what is required by the industry, what is required by the academia is brought out. But that's not enough actually, because these days there is a changing environment, and in fact industry looking for substitution of their in-house training with pre-preparation by the B schools, etc. There is a need for industry to be more involved. So one of the solutions probably would be, some things that we have been trying, is to have more industry captains on the board as well as on various levels at various stages, so that we could probably have the courses itself run with the industry orientation straight away, so that one of the gaps in the industry academia demands or industry academia desires can be overcome. The third aspect I would like to bring out is about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is something that is very important, because ultimately a person who is a very successful entrepreneur has to be a very good manager. He should have a good knowledge about management skills. And a person who is an excellent manager who wants to become a leader ultimately has to think like an entrepreneur. So either way, it's a very integrated sort of thing, entrepreneurship. So there is a need for greater emphasis in all these schools on entrepreneurship and practical entrepreneurship training. That is something that we all should now live up to. One of the challenges all of us would be facing, and that is not addressed enough in my opinion, is about the involvement of faculty in all this. It is a challenge because while the leadership might feel or maybe sold on the idea of immediately implementing all that straight away, it is very difficult because academics, faculty are very highly qualified and opinionated academics, and all of us will agree that academics are very difficult to change their minds. So, it's always difficult to bring them around and also make sure that they all follow the same pattern. So this one challenge that's going to be there in all these changes which are going to happen. Lastly, I would say that while we have all this principles and changes that we are going to have, we are all working in a competitive environment. And Amit was just now mentioning in the previous thing about the number of B schools which are closing. Now PGDM is under a threat. There are so many such challenges which are happening, and which means that because of the competitive environment, while individual B schools should seek to be different, they cannot be far different from the rest of the crowd. It has to be a pattern. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to sort of have a segmentation for that. These are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parasuraman. I now invite Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain. Yeah, you're most welcome to speak from here.
Thank you, Shreevats. Very typical situation I am in. Long day, last session, last speaker. So let me try and attempt to grab your attention or keep it, intact. I'll also try, to see that I don't repeat what is already said. And on this topic, in fact, we have had several events earlier also. 𝗕𝗲𝗻𝗃 has done, Amit has done so many, and so much has been spoken. I have two thoughts on this when you say implementation of NEP and challenges and opportunities. I see challenges from the regulatory and policy perspective, and I see only opportunities from the institution perspective. Now, opportunity in terms of several things already said. You have a lot of flexibility of designing your, crafting your programs, de-integrate the programs, have 3-month capsules to, 5-year programs, and, kind of have multiple entry, exit, all sorts of provisions give you a lot of power to the institution to be as flexible and as much value as you can in the programs and courses that you're offering. Having said that, institutions who can adopt quickly can build capabilities relevant. Earlier also in the digitization session said, okay, if you can build capabilities, then you have, world is at your disposal. It means you have world of opportunities there. So it is up to the institutions to gear up, build capabilities and work on and grab the opportunities. There are huge opportunities, and NEP in fact tells you scale up. As somebody commented, no more restriction of 60 as a class size or 120 as a class size, go and take approvals and all. They say you have to have 3,000 students. So that means the opportunities in terms of, for standalone institutions is humongous. Having said that, the landscape of Indian management education, the B schools or affiliated institutions are institutions in any form offering business management program. You call it PGDM, you call it master's program in management or MBA or whatever name. Half a dozen names are there. The affiliated model where there is a rigidity because of the university system they are part of, they are going to have a huge challenge of adoptability. Even if they want to adopt, the system may not be conducive enough or flexible enough to give that muscle to them, or that may take some time. So in the process, many of the institutions may actually be wiped out, or they may have to take a decision of, it's more of a survival crisis that they will face. However, if you look at the top 200 or 300 institutions, you are talking about possibility of scaling up, provided you get your soft and hard infrastructure in place. Faculty, space, technology and all. Now, as we are talking about digitization again in the past session, if I borrow the ideas from there, you don't need space also. You don't need any more 100-acre campuses. have a smart campus and you can serve 30,000 students and deliver the same level of excellence. The challenge part lies in the very implementation of NEP from the policy perspective, from the regulatory framework. Now look at the scale of the education system of this country. We are talking about from schools, for example, 15 lakh schools, 90 lakh faculty members, a rough figure of 2019 survey, and 25 to 30 crore students. And you're talking about states, districts, sub-districts, locals, it is so diverse. The sheer scale is, mind-boggling. So for the policy framework to actually percolate to that level and implement everything to retain the spirit of NEP is a daunting task. And diversity, scale and diversity is a major challenge at policy level. The second aspect, I feel, at the current government, the ministry is doing great work. A lot of new initiatives have started, Diksha, Nistha, and all those things. Swayam, lot of those programs that they have started. Having said that, the current framework is not adequate, doesn't have adequate machinery to actually, navigate through the provisions of NEP and implement them in letter and spirit. So jacking up that infrastructure at regulatory level is going to be a daunting task. The third is a typical political conundrum at state versus central and all. Already we have started seeing announcements and all where Karnataka was the first mover in terms of implementing NEP, followed by Madhya Pradesh. And in the meanwhile, Tamil Nadu said we will not. We have objection on certain. And there are other so-called BJP ruled state or the current dispensation which are not aligned with that thought process. They said we are in disagreement with certain provisions and hence we will not implement. Now that will derail the whole process of implementation. The speed with which NEP has to be implemented, perhaps that may get there they will have a roadblock or difficulty or challenge. The fourth challenge is in fact it's a challenge for government but an opportunity for private institutions is participation of private schools. Private schools have always been seen as a second-grade citizen, by the policy, and a lot of restrictions were, imposed. But now they should be seen, or they should be invited as partners, or shared responsibility, so that the NEP can be implemented at least in certain pockets fully. Especially in management education space, because private people are getting more investments and more innovation. While the government machinery with all, bureaucratic, laced with bureaucratic, baggage and a lot of challenges of change management or reorienting the employees and, reorienting all the stakeholders, it may take its own time. So private participation is important, and the policy makers or the regulatory bodies should be able to invite private players as their partners. The last and final, which we all know, is the issue of funding. Now, from 1968 to 86 to now, we're talking about 6% of GDP and all. I don't know when we are going to achieve that. But to be able to achieve a full-fledged implementation of NEP and see the results of what it envisages or achieve what it envisages, then even 6% may not be sufficient. We have to really move fast on that. How do we get resources? Where do we get resources from? It's a matter of discussion, or maybe policymakers have to look at it. So my thoughts are, challenges are purely from the policy perspective, from the regulatory side. But for institutions like, we are all representing several institutions, leading institutions of the country, we have opportunities and only opportunities. And I'm pretty optimistic. We talk about half full, half, empty glass. I see a full glass, half filled with water and half with air. So we should look at that and to be able to grab that opportunity, we should build our capabilities. Thank you so much. I think these are my opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. So I'll just do a quick round of one question, if I can request each of the panelists to answer in a couple of minutes in a pointed way, and then we'll go to the audience. So Dr. Diwan, I want to ask you, you raised a question on the survivability of especially small PGDM institutions. So, I see here a lot of people would be directors or heading such institutions. What can they do actively to make sure that their institutions survive the NEP if they are not large enough to become universities? One way is that they could wait for the regulations to play out and be given their fate. But what could they do proactively to make sure that the NEP becomes something that helps them and their institution to thrive rather than becomes a threat to their survival?
Thanks for your question, and in fact it is a very burning question which is in mind of most of the directors or promoters of smaller standalone institutions. So my, first of all prescription is as to how quick... Am I better or not? It's better. So what I was saying that, biggest thing is to, definitely look into a framework to create an autonomous institution for business, because otherwise there will not be a survival. And then to do so, one should also parallelly thinking on, as I mentioned in my initial remarks, the adjacencies in terms of how you can move into the liberal arena or in the arena of data sciences, decision sciences, or business computing sciences. Maybe in the short term for the undergraduate, one may have to affiliate with a neighboring institution or neighboring university to make sure till the time these new regulations come. But that's why I was saying that, EPSI should make a very concerted effort to create a framework where most of the PGDM small institutions can become autonomous degree granting institutions. And then they can enlarge their portfolio. And the other ones who have enough acreage of 5 acres or higher can become a smaller management university. After all, we also have an example of Singapore Management University, which is in downtown Singapore in some glass buildings. And they offer, apart from management, the allied areas of decision sciences, etc. So there is also a construct of smaller management university with allied areas of discipline so that they fulfill the criteria of multidisciplinarity. So these are some of the few thoughts, but yes, the question is very burning and there is no single answer, but we need to work very hard or lobby very hard to protect the interests of smaller PGDM institutions by creating as soon as possible a regulation as to how they can convert themselves into autonomous institutions with degree granting powers. So that's the essence of it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diwan. I think on top of that, accreditation is becoming extremely important because as these regulations get formed on who gets the power to grant degrees as an autonomous college, their accreditation status, whether it is through NBA, NAC, and hopefully in the future international accreditation as well, will be very important once these regulations get formed. You're very right that we need to work together towards forming these regulations at the earliest. Dr. Parasuraman, you spoke about faculty and educating faculty about the changes that are taking place in the regulatory environment so that faculty can drive the response of B schools. In your experience at your institution or others, can you talk about how, as directors, leaders of business schools, we can lead change along with faculty and make them participate in this process of getting our institutions ready for the NEP?
Yeah, it is a challenge in the sense that the faculty will have difference of opinion as to various specific steps to be taken. But we did go through an accreditation process, in fact 2 times, international accreditation process. Not faculty had to be necessarily involved in terms of intended learning outcomes and all. So we arranged for interaction with other B schools which have already gone through the process, also with senior academics and people. And then basically the faculty came, it is a question of teamwork, in the sense that ultimately everybody has to be sold on these ideas. For example, when I am talking about evaluation, faculty might feel, there will be many faculty who, there will be many faculty who will feel that evaluation is a very, very crucial function, in the sense that without proper evaluation, how can you say somebody has passed from this institute? That will actually reduce the standard overall. But on the other hand, there is a feeling that, the age-old evaluation has to change. So I think there has to be a consensus that has to be happen. It's partly because of by training, partly by a free interaction with faculty and taking the opinion. And there's no real one answer to it, but I think that's at once a challenge as well as an opportunity.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jain, I think you're very optimistic about especially the market forces at play for MBA education, as I am, I know. So, as leaders of business schools are here, what do you feel are some of the low-hanging fruits in terms of the opportunities that might be there for these institutions to grow, both in terms of quality and in terms of numbers?
I think the answer is given in the previous sessions, where you have three options. Chaturvedi sir has actually alluded about it. You have three types of programs offering pure play online, online with an immersive module where you invite them for a couple of weeks or a few visits to campus and have those modules which are more experiential in nature, and then have a full-fledged specialized face-to-face courses. So all three can be done and they are doable now immediately. So all the top B schools, at least top 100 I can vouch for, who can really catch up on this and scale up their business, so to say, and also kind of start working or experimenting with a few things. Second aspect is again the multidisciplinary aspect. Management program by design, by nature, is multidisciplinary. So this provision in NEP where they talk about multidisciplinary, fine for pure sciences or technology, engineering courses and all, fine, they need to infuse a bit of psychology, liberal arts and all that. But management by nature is multidisciplinary. So are we talking about multidisciplinary institutions or multidisciplinary programs? If it is an MBA college, it is multidisciplinary by nature. At best, what you can do is you can add a concentrated or full-fledged program in economics or behavioral sciences or decision sciences and so on, which are anyway part of MBA program. So you want to take them out, develop a full module of maybe a certificate program, and then offer them. So that is another option where you can design some specialized certificate programs which are allied areas of management and kind of offer. I see that as a low-hanging fruit. We are already working on that. And a 4-year program, though it is still under discussions and all, we have actually designed a program at our institution, and we are waiting. Once we get the green signal, we want to announce it. And that's a fantastic opportunity where it also helps us in having a flexible MBA program. With a 4-year degree, you do a 1-year MBA, or with 3-year, you discontinue at undergraduate level and go for a 2-year MBA program. Likewise, so that offerings we can always have a combination, a more flexibility in our hands.
So you're saying that the flexibility is actually opening up new opportunities for business schools to cater to various kinds of diverse students. So I think the directive given to me was to keep the session interactive, and the speakers have done a wonderful job of keeping to time. So if I'd love to take some audience questions for the next 15-20 minutes, if there are some. Yes, the gentleman. Can we get a mic? Yeah. Okay. Any questions, anybody? Yes, Dr. 𝗕𝗏𝗏.
Is it on? Yeah. Interesting discussion. And NEP, it seems, has thrown up a lot of flexible options. But I think in practice, many of these things have been tried out. Multiple entry, multiple exit. The certificate, the diploma, the degree, that type of things have also been tried out. These credit banks that you're talking about, you do a course in IIT or you do a course from an ITI. Could be all the difference. So how do you bring that equality into all this? That is one aspect. The other one is we are talking about B schools, business management, but whereas people are talking in terms of leadership qualities, we forget the leadership part, we are still on the management part. So that is one of my reactions also. And in terms of digitization and everything, we are used to, in school, you have a half-an-hour period. In college, you have 55 minutes. And in the MBA, maybe 1.5 hours. Now, the world over is now looking into short, small capsules. Not interested in my NPTEL courses, which was 1 hour each. Now they're looking for 10 minutes, small capsules. So maybe some reactions from you people. And otherwise, on paper, very good, but a lot of practical difficulties that are there in the implementation process. In the IIT Jodhpur, in fact, they have come up with the School of Liberal Arts. So from humanities and social sciences to management studies departments to now School of Liberal Arts.
Sir,
So
the
next
question
one.
about the cross-institution mobility, if I can. See, cross-institution mobility will have a problem with the academic bank of credits or your multiple entry and exit. If it is within the university or within the institution, like, a student enrolls, for some reason he or she discontinues after a year, he gets a diploma, and he can or she can come back at any time, or there is a time frame given, because the dynamics of the subject is developing, the field is emerging fast. So the relevance of the content will always have its own lifetime. So maybe say 3 years. Within 3 years, you can come back and start where you stopped earlier. So within the institution is fine. But across institutions, I'm not sure whether any of us have answer to that. Because ITI, IIT, IDI, or maybe, somebody wanting to do or move to IIM Nagpur from, say, SIBM Hyderabad. So SIBM Hyderabad, the student may be very happy to go to Nagpur, but Nagpur may not be open to, welcome them. So that issue is there, and that has to be addressed. That is my comment on that point.
Dr. Jain, to add to that, there is already inbuilt mechanism in ABC or Academic Bank of Credit A. The transference will happen in all NAC A accredited institutions. So the level of that from IITI you are jumping to IIT does not arise as of now. Second, it also mentions currently the shelf life of the credit. As you said, obsolescence and all, the current shelf life is mentioned at 5 years. So those things are there, but unless and until we start practicing it, there would be huge questions. And where will you throw? So people are thinking of creating a NAD or digital locker kind of a space to keep all these academic credits. So there will be a lot of, between cup and the lip, as they say, there will be many spills. But finally, as somebody was 𝗕𝗲𝗱𝗏 ki tarah se, we will get everything sorted out some point in time when we start to practice this. But yes, challenges are there, but that's where whenever there is a drastic change in terms of policy, regulation, etc., this is bound to happen.
Thank you. So I think, giving my perspective on this, I think the NEP is very forward-looking in the sense that it's broad enough to realize that there is a huge diversity in the Indian education system, and we have to realize that diversity. It's not prescriptive in nature to many of these things, because it realizes that these regulations will probably need to change and evolve over time, even as that you cannot have a new NEP every 2 or 3 years. So I think they have been purposefully broad in their suggestions. When you talk about Academic Bank of Credit, as Dr. Diwan said, presently it's only for A-grade institutions. I personally don't see it being used by majority of students, but it may be used by minority of students. In the US, for example, it's common, but for a minority of students to transfer from one college to another after studying 1 year, especially at the undergraduate level. In India, presently, we had no mechanism of doing that. So it is allowing, the NEP is opening some of these doors. I don't think that specifically Academic Bank of Credit and transfer from one institution to another will be used by majority of the students, but could be used by a minority of students, could be used by top institutions to enhance capacity for students who just come in to do a particular course and then use that to set that off against another course at another institution. So I think these regulations will evolve, and I think it's good that the NEP is broad enough not to be prescriptive in these, because I think they realize that we can't come up with a new NEP or transform that document which has gone through Parliament every year or 2 years, as we realize that some things are going well and some things are not going that well. So those will happen at a secondary level. I think in terms of the question you raised or the comment you gave about class timings and so on, I think we live in extremely interesting times, and again, the NEP is not prescriptive on things like that, very purposefully so, about whether classes should be longer or shorter. Again, there's the sort of diversity that we have in India, in the sorts of institutions that we have, in the sorts of formats that we will have of offline, online, and hybrid, where it's up to us as business school leaders, as education leaders, to experiment with things and see what works and what doesn't work in our context for our students in our classrooms and outside. Last comments?
Last
then we'll
comment
take to the
I have
next
about
question.
this one is cross-institution, even among IIMs, would be difficult because credit definition, what is taught. So for example, if financial management is a course is taken, the way it is structured by ISB is different from the way it is structured at many of the IIMs, or the way it is structured at among the top 30 institutions. So what is taught, how much is taught, for how long it is taught, all these things are very different across even the so-called A+ grade institutions. So that mobility will have its own challenges, and I don't see cross-institutional mobility anytime soon unless we bring in that uniformity. But the challenge is the moment you bring in uniformity brings rigidity. Right now, BIMTech has flexibility of designing its management program with what it feels is good, and how it differentiates its students and programs, and the way we do it. But if we bring in rigidity, uniformity for the sake of mobility, we are introducing rigidity, So we go back to it. It's a catch-22. So this has to be, maybe discussed and debated, and we have to arrive at some solution. Maybe a syndicate of institutions of same league may be one possibility. You have 10, 15 institutions coming together and forming a syndicate and say, okay, we can offer to our students mobility across the institutions, and they can define these things and all that. But broad-based mobility, I don't see. I have my own reservations on that.
Thank you.
But Europe has a system called ECTS, which is called European Credit Transfer System. So something similar, maybe we'll have to evolve for Indian credit transfer system also on that parallel, and some of the learnings are there as to how it works and how it operates, because any student can transfer to any European university with credits. Yeah. So those kind of things are there. That would evolve. Yes, there was another question.
So next question, please.
Good afternoon. Before I ask my question, of course, my question has been partially answered by Shreevats. But let me thank the EPSI and the number of experts since morning for wonderful discussions on pertinent issues. It's not a question, it's a kind of, apprehension that if a student goes for 40% of credit transfer from different colleges, different institutions of different subjects, institutions like us, I don't know whether people will agree with me or not, why student then will pay the fees, full fees to me? That I'm going to pay 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs of rupees if I can get the 40% of the credit from other institute. And this is just an apprehension, though Shreevats has already said that, this policy may get revised, policy may get edited after 2 years, 1 year. It's not fixed. But still, I have this apprehension that how should we address this issue?
So I'll try to give an example of how it works in the US, for example. If you affiliate yourself as a student with a particular college, you have to pay their full tuition fee, unless you take a semester off, in which case you don't have to pay the tuition fee of that semester. And then the credits that you missed in that semester, you can probably do over a certain amount of time at other colleges. So eventually, to some degree, it will be up to the colleges to give this sort of flexibility and not, and what kind of fee structures would be charged when credits are being transferred, what credits would be accepted, are norms that are going to have to be developed over time.
That's what I'm saying.
But eventually, I think as we spoke about online expanding the market for education in general, I think giving more flexibility for students, giving more choice will expand the market and make a better product for all of us to co-create together. So I think it's more evolutionary in nature. Yes, it makes us uncomfortable because it's something that we've not done in India before. But
Absolutely.
Implemented the right way, I think it will create a better product, more flexibility. It will make institutions that have probably not delivered to a student after first year, and a student has an exit option after first year. It will make those institutions vulnerable. It will make institutions that are doing extremely well and can get surplus capacity in the second year, in a better position. So I think I personally believe giving students flexibility in a well-defined manner will hopefully create a better product.
Even we do believe.
So I think the regulation lays the foundations for that. I don't think we have entire clarity on how it will evolve over time in the Indian context, given the large amount of diversity that we have.
Right.
But I think there are steps in the right direction.
Right. Thank you.
I'm Rajan Chaudhary from IMC South Extension, Delhi. I have a small question. Like somebody gave, I think probably Mr. Parag told, like Singapore Institute of Management is in a confined building in the downtown area. Same way, America also has got a lot of universities in a building. But Indian regulators' mindset is how many acres, when they talk about university, 5 acres, 10 acres, even AICT says minimum half acre. Once upon a time, they were thinking of an idea that within the metros, they should allow within a building, provided they have got all the facilities and enough area. So we should try to persuade the regulators for the metros at least to have, only then we can have more educators if we allow the buildings, instead of having the land grab, revolution, like all the universities are trying to grab more and more land, Why can't we have a good university within a building also?
You want anybody in particular to answer?
But over the years, if you even see AICT regulations, they've dropped down drastically, There was a time when you needed, even in Delhi, 25 acres, it became 10, 5, 1. Yeah. So similarly in the rural areas also, but you are right, sir, that in time will come that if you have a well-equipped building, high-rise building or a wider building with all amenities, all student breakout, and in metros, you don't need to have hostels also, People can commute by metro trains and things like that, as it happens in New York, everywhere. Columbia University is also distributed in multiple buildings. So these kind of mindsets will happen. It will take time, but already regulators have come down drastically on the acreage size. But yes, certain square footage, minimum required square footage would be required to house. Yeah. So these are all the points that I'm sure EPSI is noting down. They'll create a white paper. They will create a that's the role EPSI has. And once we have an NEP, we'll have to work towards actualizing its provisions. So there are many areas, and this gives a real good opportunity for EPSI to do a transformative work, a huge work with government to see that all these NEP provisions become implementable. Sir, but AICT may also not exist. That's also
I think there are two levels of, just to close this, I think there are two levels of regulation. At a central level, if you look at AICT provisions, maybe they've not changed acreage, but many of the other infrastructural requirements like computer labs, etc., they are trying to reduce year on year, and the attitude of the government is very positive and rational that, maybe these need to evolve over time. The question about university largely lies in state capitals, because most of these universities are being passed as straight private universities. And you are extremely right that probably we need to do more work as industry organizations to work with state capitals, to work with states, to bring down acreage and have more reasonable regulation to promote more universities there. So, point very well taken.
Yeah,
Dr. Singh.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Let me tell you, one model is already there. Probably we have to take it forward from there. If you understand the center school system or a Kendriya Vidyalaya system, I have been there for a while. My father was in a defense services. So even if you are studying in Nagpur and father has been posted to Delhi, you simply take out TC from there and go to even your father need not to go and accompany you to the school, and you will straightway be given the admission, same class, same curriculum. But of course, a lot of a standardization is there. The course is same, the selection process is also of the faculty members is same. So probably if you could do something in terms of the standardization of everything, this model is very much achievable. Is there any momentum on this particular aspect?
Sir, that as Shreevats earlier said, if you do standardization, then the whole purpose of autonomy of institutions, universities go away. It works in school education because CBSE is a board standardizes, but UGC or AICT does not standardize that curriculum. Everybody has to follow.
But the system is working flawlessly, sir.
Because of the standardization, CBSE, same.
So it has its merits.
But then it does not work in the university or higher education. Yeah.
So, for example, what you are saying is it's working in the Kendriya Vidyalaya system, which itself, even within the school system, is a smaller standardized system. So, for example, if we run 4 colleges at Jaipuria, we can probably have easy change between them. But as soon as you go outside the system, even in the school system, because we run schools, if a student comes from Kendriya Vidyalaya to a Jaipuria in class 7, we'll probably ask him to take an entrance test. So there are merits to having the option. So if you compare it to the school system, what I see in the schools, actually there is an option. The student can give a test and come to change schools in class 7. You are talking about inside a Kendriya Vidyalaya system, they can probably do it even without a test. But in the school, there's still an option. After giving a test, they can change from year to year. Presently, in MBA and in higher education in general in India, there was no opportunity itself. Now the government is saying at least you have the opportunity to change. How the accepting college accepts you, probably this is still to be defined, and there has to be latitude given to the accepting college to accept whether this person can come through at a lateral level.
Moreover, these are two different things.
Yeah.
Central school system and CBSE. Central schools are meant only for central government employees. And if the seats are vacant, then those seats can be filled up by admitting civilians wards. And CBSE is open board. Any school fulfilling the criteria of CBSE can get it affiliated with CBSE. Correct. So I think we should be very clear that central government will not give admissions to civilians in large number. Their schools, central schools are meant only for central government employees and armed forces Jawans.
As a corollary, then central universities can have this system between themselves.
Yes, for example, they have adopted by a government notification that CUET will be applicable to all 45 central universities, but it is not applicable or compulsory to state public universities.
Sir, management curriculum, even between central universities, is different.
No.
So, and many a times business schools use their program structure as a differentiator. So, what Jamnalal Bajaj is offering, they will say these are my value propositions in terms of program structure, delivery model and all that. So, the moment we talk about uniformity, we are talking about rigidity. So, it's a catch-22.
So last question, please.
I think we will have to close 4:30.
Yes.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much to the audience. Thank you very much to the panelists for an extremely engaging discussion. I hope it kept to our brief of having this session as very interactive. It's a policy that we've looked at over the last year or so in detail, but still we were able to bring out new nuances to that discussion today. I thank all of the panelists as well as the audience for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, panel members, for that insightful discussion on the challenges and opportunities for the Indian B schools in the NEP 2020 implementation. NEP 2020 is truly a path-breaking document and definitely opening many doors. However, its effective implementation while addressing all the challenges is very critical if India wants to benefit and reap the benefits of it. This brings us to the end of the plenary session 4, and we would like to express our gratitude to the panelists and moderator with a token of our appreciation. May I request Dr. Durga Prasad, Director, Vignan Institute of Management, to please present the certificate to Dr. Barak Devan and Dr. Parasuraman, please. Dr. 𝗕𝗲𝗬𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Jain and Shri Shreevats Jaipuria. Thank you, ma'am. I now request Mr. 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗀𝑇𝑠, Associate Director, No Paper Forms, to present the photographs to the panel members, please. Thank you very much, panel members. As we approach the end of this program, it is time to propose the vote of thanks. I now request Dr. 𝗕𝗲𝗻𝗀, Executive Secretary, EPSI, to please come forward and propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to all. My sincere gratitude and thanks to all the panelists for the four panel discussions since morning. It is all are enlightened by the speakers, Mr. Dr. 𝗕𝗲𝗻𝗀 Singh, Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh, 𝗕𝗲𝗱𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗵𝗶 ji, Shri 𝗦𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗵𝗶 𝗕𝗫𝗀𝗃 sir, and the second session, that accreditation ranking and reputation management in the post-pandemic world, Dr. 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃, Dr. 𝗕𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 Shri, Dr. 𝗕𝗫𝗱𝗃𝗀𝗃, Dr. 𝗕𝗫𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃, and in fact the third session, it is Shri 𝗕𝗫𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 ji, Shri 𝗕𝗫𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 ji, from No Paper Farms, Shri 𝗕𝗫𝗃𝗃 ji, Shri 𝗕𝗫𝗃𝗃𝗃, and the final session for the implementation, challenges and opportunities of Indian BSQ, which is an important one. Dr. Parag Devan, Parasuraman ji, Ravi Kumar Jain, and Shreevats Jaipuria. Of course, from that inaugural session, that Mr. Punia ji could not able to join because of that last minute that there was a call from the PM office and he was to go to Ahmedabad along with the minister, so that he has, of course, he has not denied and he has sent one video bet also. My sincere thanks to the AICT, because always that AICT is supporting for that EPSI, particular about the PGDM institutions. In fact, they are always protecting that autonomy of the PGDM institution. Our sincere thanks to AICT and of course 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 ji from the NBA, and that once again my thanks to previously that he was our member in the advisory committee for the Rajiv Kumar sir, then my office bearers, my mentor, Dr. 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 sir, founder, President Vishwanathan ji, all other office bearers, advisors, my team, Mr. Rajendra, Mr. Sumit, Mr. Kailash, Ms. 𝗕𝗫𝗀𝗃𝗃 and others, and all the advisors, my friend Mr. Siddharth Jain, everyone, my sincere thanks to once again. And EPSI is doing that so many activities. Now we are taking a delegation to NAFSA also to US for this coming 27th to 3rd. So we already sent a request to all the institutions. That somewhat around 10 institutions we are taking it, and people might have known. And then even if you could not able to join now, next year onwards, kindly please join for that NAFSA. Also we are doing the international activities also. So I would request all of them to please send your suggestions and feedback also, and all our activities. We are having that very soon. We are going to organize one very big interactive meeting that young entrepreneur also we formed a group also, and also that we are having to organize a very big national level conference in that eastern side. Either it may be Kolkata or Bhubaneswar. Perhaps it may be Bhubaneswar, your place, ma'am. So I would request all of them to join for that conference also. So once again, my sincere thanks to all the sponsors, because mainly without them, we can't able to run such a big shows, because every time I used to say, if I charge even for 500 rupees, here that all will be empty. Only that myself and the speakers will be speak. If I charge 500 rupees, no faculty will be here, no directors will be here, no VCs will be here, because that's the reason this organization is running, because of the sponsors. My sincere thanks to Becker and AACSB. AACSB is always supporting us. Of course, EFMD, TAPME, JAXM, Jaipuria, and Institute of Management Sciences. And always that we are having the associate partners. Apart from this, VIT University, Birla Institute of Management Technology, Satyabhama, Welltech, Ramaya, No Paper Farms, Manav Rachna, and Magay. Then particular about that, this excellent anchoring done by Dr. Nimisha Singh and Ms. Pragyan ji. So my sincere thanks to both of you, where both of you has done that so much of work. He made us easy for our work. So thank you very much for all of us. And I would once again thanks to all since morning. And I would like to say, apart from the 200 delegates, totally some of the floating delegates today is around 200. Apart from this, through the social media, Facebook and others, somewhat 1,000 people are watching this show. So this also one of the very big things. And for particular about the management sector, 1,000 people are watching, it is a very big one. It is not like that any kind of the engineering, it is not a general subject. So my sincere thanks to all the institutions. Whenever we are calling for that, they're saying, in fact, this hall is very small. Otherwise, I got a registration around 225. Ultimately, I restricted to somewhat around 200 and 150 plus only, so that otherwise by that time this may be for around 250. My sincere thanks to once again, thanks to all. I would request all of them to kindly rise for the national anthem, please.
Jana